Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? As mentioned in the daily financial news, we have the legend, Jonathan Twomley, with me today. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. So as we teased in episode number 2, we're going to talk about the Fed actions. As you know, there's a very popular phrase out there that says, don't bet against the Fed. So I thought we should just talk to the normal person who maybe doesn't know what that means, but also let's realize what the Fed giveth, the Fed could taketh away. And you may not like when that happens. So why don't you talk about the fact that we got to watch the Fed because they are an important factor.
Yeah, I mean, listen, so the Fed controls interest rates, right? And the Fed has a dual mandate, which is sometimes conflicting. And that mandate is to guard against inflation and to keep employment at the maximum, but to keep full employment. And they're constantly trying to sort of tweak the interest rate to achieve both of those things. They don't want the economy to overheat and create inflation. They don't want it to become deflationary and lose employment. And so they're constantly having that balance. Now, there's been really, for since the 1990s, there has been a kind of an inexorable downward trend of interest rates. And this has happened around the world, and it's connected to, among other things, one of the factors has been deflation around the world created by automation and by outsourcing to China. It's no accident that this inexorable downward interest rate environment really coincides with China's entry into the WTO and everybody being able to basically screw their working class over and ship all their jobs to China, which is basically every developed country in the world has done this because you can pay people, pennies per hour rather than, $20 an hour to manufacture stuff. So that has had a great deflationary effect. And the other great deflationary effect has been burgeoning federal, government deficits.
Yep.
As people continue to demand lots of government services but don't want to pay for them. So politicians have accommodated them by saying, hey, we'll give you all the services that you want. We won't ask you to pay for any of it. We'll just kick the can down the road with debt and
we'll pay
and also and at the same time, China has had all this extra cash to buy our debt with because we did what we did. So so that has created really strong deflationary pressures and also pressure on interest rates to keep them low because with huge federal deficits, if you have high interest rates, the federal government will just not be able to make its debt service, or so people fear. Like, who knows? I mean, if they're just making up money anyway, maybe they can pay whatever interest rate that we want.
Yeah.
We haven't tried that experiment yet, but maybe that is the case. Who knows? But the conventional wisdom is if we cause interest rates to we let them go up, the government won't be able to pay their debts. And also on top of things, the reason why you saw the Fed panic when COVID started was because they knew that half the companies in America would go belly up if they didn't reduce their debt burden by reducing interest rates even further. And corporate America has become addicted to cheap debt.
Oh yeah.
So they, and a lot of companies are on basically life support because they're financing themselves with cheap debt. And if the debt were to go, if interest rates were to rise, they would not be able to service their debt, and we see a wave of corporate bankruptcies, which is what the fear was at the beginning of COVID, which didn't materialize because interest rates, went really low, but also a lot of businesses, people just went and worked from home and there wasn't much effect. So that's been, downward pressure on interest rates for a long time. The whole economy has become addicted to this. So what's going to happen if we have inflation and the Fed has to raise rates, right, to try to fight inflation? It's going to be in a tough spot because the Fed is going to know that interest rates, if they raise interest rates too much, then it could tank the economy. But at the same time, they have to break the back of inflation again if we get serious inflation. So you need to pay attention to where this is going because as an investor and as a consumer, it makes a difference to you where interest rates are. And if the Fed is going to start raising interest rates, then you've got to get ready for that.
Yeah, what I love to kind of use stories to kind of or imagery for folks. What I think about the Fed is, right, they come to the party. They're that person that, has got this the spiked alcohol in their jacket, right? And when they want to get the party going, they pour the alcohol in the punch, right? And that's what they did. If you want to go see what they did, go back to March or April of 2020, right? The stock market did look like a V, right? Kind of the K-shaped recovery on assets going up. And then what happens when the party's over, right? You take the punch bowl away. Lots of people are not paying attention. They get addicted. They're drunk, frankly, on they like all the money, right? They're living high. They're buying fancy sport. I remember the '08 crash, and I knew this was a problem. There was an agent, a young guy, I think he was 25 or 26. So Central Valley, it's 1 million people, but just outside the Central Valley, there's like a town of 20,000 people. This real estate agent was having such a good year. He went out and bought a $400,000 sports car. There's like 6 of them in the world, right? And he was flexing, right? I can't do any wrong, blah, blah. I'm like, this is not going to end well, right? There's only 6 of these supercars and you got it in this little town in California. And people aren't paying attention when the Fed comes and takes away the punch bowl, the party's over. And if you're not paying attention, it could hurt.
Yeah, and that's what actually happened in 2008.
Yeah.
Was when the Fed got spooked and saw that the markets were overheating and started to raise interest rates, try to get get on top of it, and eventually they did. But they caused all those adjustable rate mortgages to
explode.
To explode. They made it harder for the next person to buy, so there was no greater fool to come and buy the property.
Oh, that's exactly what they did. They shut the door. Nobody else came in. If you were in the party, you were about to feel pain. They were not letting anybody else in because lending just changed overnight. It's like, nope, not doing that anymore.
It's funny, actually, just this morning, because I'm refinancing my mortgage right now, I had to go and get my co-op share certificate and send it to the bank. And I just was flipping through my original mortgage documents from when I bought my apartment, and the interest rate was 6.25%.
Oh, wow.
It was 2008.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, like, that wasn't that long ago, right?
That was not that long ago.
And I remember when people thought that was a cheap interest rate. Remember that? I remember I remember my dad saying, like, wow, interest rates are 6%. That's like super cheap. Awesome. Like, I'm going to refinance my mortgage. Yeah. So
that's crazy. Well, folks, you got to pay attention to the Fed. Jonathan, thank you for your time today. How can people get a part of your universe and follow you?
Yeah, one of the best ways that you can do that is you can join my Facebook group, which is called the Multifamily Investment Community. But I beg you, please, if you haven't joined yet, join from a computer the first time, because there's some questions you have to answer to get in, and Facebook only shows them to people on the computer, which is insane. So so log in the first time on the computer, and then you can use your phone after that. But Multifamily Investment Community. Folks,
and again, I've spent some money recently cleaning up all my descriptions. So below you will see Jonathan has his own playlist. You can go back and listen to hundreds of hours of us having conversations. Thanks, Jonathan. Enjoy the week.
Thanks, Michael. You too. Take care.